Hello everyone and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. Today's 101 talk day, and so I get to discuss with you in honor of my mom and my dad really the 6 things. Of course there are many other things that I'm sure they told me and try to teach me in life, and I'm sure has just, it's been instilled in me, and yet these were the 6 pieces that I really felt did not just go from one ear to the other, but really went in and into my brain, into my heart, into my spirit, and has really helped me to become and mold myself to the character that I feel would help me be at my best. And the very first one is act like a lady. And there are 3 components to this piece, and the very first one is be quiet. For those of you who know me, I remember running into my friend Stacy. I was just telling a old friend this just recently. I was at Target, and it had been like maybe a decade that I hadn't seen my high school friend, and I'm talking to my daughters in Target, and all of a sudden my friend Stacy from high school was like, Ann, and she said my former last name, and is taken aback, like, who in the world is calling me by my former last name? And lo and behold, it was my old friend from high school. And it's like, how did you know it was me? She goes, I know that voice from anywhere. So, as you can see, just a small piece of my life that I never held back from talking when it was necessary. Just being really, just using, I guess, that freedom of speech, right? And being comfortable with who you are and your voice. And yet, my parents taught me how to be quiet, depending on what area or what environment we were in. And I am so grateful for that, because I knew how to be respectful in a library. I had an aunt who worked at a library, and I became a library assistant in junior high. Things I love. I always love, being in a library rather than being out in recess. And then as well as by the time I was in high school going into college, I was also working at the downtown public library. And so being in a library is just maybe because I always just knew, that when you're in that type of environment, you had to be quiet. Same thing as being in a church, being in a very solemn environment and atmosphere. You really had to allow people to be meditative with their thoughts and just, being connected spiritually. And same thing being in a restaurant. There are some restaurants where you can talk a little bit and be a little bit louder because the aura or the ambiance is a little bit more of high volume, versus when you're in a restaurant where it seemingly seems that everyone is quiet and a little bit more subdued or reserved, or that they are a little bit more conservative. Really knowing how to be quiet when was something that was really helpful for me, because I knew how to carry myself in certain environments. And so part of being a lady also is cross your legs. And I know it sounds silly, but there were times when I was in junior high and you're going through your tomboyish days, and there are times I couldn't help it. I had hand-me-downs from my brothers, so I really had to just play the role of loving to climb trees and loving to jump up and down and climb everywhere and anywhere I could, and just playing kickball, right? And so there were times where it was difficult for me to understand that I was becoming a lady, and yet crossing my legs was something that I knew marked me and then really developed me into the lady I needed to become. And so, very important, because as my mom would say, there are many, many chapters and many tales between that book, so close your cover, right? And so many of us maybe would understand that, or if not all of us. And I think there's so much greatness in just that words of wisdom right there. Close your book. And then the other one is roll your shoulders. So every time I would walk, again, being tomboyish or feeling like I didn't have to pay attention to, my developing self, my mom would say, roll your shoulders back and walk with good posture. And that says a lot about you when you walk into a room. And I cannot emphasize enough how much there's really truth in that. Going into a room or just walking in the streets, having your chin up, level to the sidewalk, I added into the meaning or the message that they were giving me, because as I understood really how you walked in, and it was really, really important to give that meaning of self-respect to those around you. And that was very important. And I was grateful. My children just kind of walked in for a second. They're playing outside. So they, the people around you really, I realize, read into that. You walk in timid, then there's something to say about that. You walk in, rest assured, with confidence, there's something to say about that as well. So roll your shoulders back and have good posture has a lot to do with showing who you are and the best you can be and being ready for it, no matter who stands before you. So that's the first one, act like a lady. The next one is, this sounds silly, but don't shave your legs. Some of you are like, okay. Well, there comes a time where hormones kick in, and yes, all of a sudden you start to feel like you're getting hairier or so. And I remember my mama saying, don't shave it. Your hormones are going to work itself out and you'll be fine. The more you shave it, then the denser it'll become, and then you're going to need to shave some more and some more. And before you know it, you're going to have prickly legs and so forth. And so I really took into that. I don't know. You could say it was, maybe I use it as a reason to be lazy about it and saying, oh God, I have to shave my legs. But I remember by the time I was finishing high school, and there were people that were saying, oh my goodness, my legs are, I've got to shave them because they're starting to like prick people. And my cousin telling me that she went to a formal dance and she's sitting next to someone else and their leg was like scratching them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, people have that issue, have that problem. I guess I never did, because the fact that I never really did shave my legs, I probably have shaved my legs. It sounds silly and really vulnerable for me to say, but probably shaved my legs maybe 10 times in my life, only because I looked at them, was like, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Who knows, when you have children and so forth, your hormones start to kick in. But luckily they never ever went to a point where they got, the hair started thickening so much that it started to become repulsive and like an ugly sight. So that was something that I took in from my mom. Don't shave it, let it work itself out. And yeah, there are some conditions where some people go, no, my genes tell me I have to shave my legs. But I do want to remember that because I followed through, I'm very thankful that I don't have to, and it's one less thing that I have to worry about. So that's the second one, don't shave your legs. Next one is eat right. This will be my papa. My papa was, you could call it pure hypocrisy, as like food would just be flying out of his mouth. He would get so upset that as a lady you talk, with food in your mouth, and you're just gonna let it just, you'd start talking with food in your mouth, and he would say, don't talk with your mouth full, in his Filipino dialect. And yet he would have food in his mouth, but perhaps he had to like say it right then and there, and he would be so upset, because it was something that was important to him, really having to see a lady for a lady and what they needed to be, in just the whole entire presentation of a lady. Very important for him to really say, make sure that your mouth is closed while you're eating your food, and don't be gluttonous, and meaning to say, like, don't just start stuffing yourself. That's tough, right? Because when there's certain foods, I'm all about it. And I know if I'm at home and no one's watching me and I've got my best friend, my husband, and my lovely children, who cares, right? But when you are in the open environment, in the public, know how to carry yourself, because there could be someone, a little girl who's looking at you and could be inspired by every move you make. And I always have to remind myself that. It's like, who am I right now, and who am I inspiring, and therefore who am I influencing, and how do I want to influence them? So I always have to remind myself, carry yourself well, because someone who is really needing some guidance is watching you. So close that mouth while you're chewing your food, and then definitely don't stuff yourself, even though it's your favorite foods around you. Hold yourself together, eat it slowly, and indulge in every bite, and in that way no one has to look at you and be perhaps sickened by the way you're eating and lose their appetite. Do your part in being a lady, and make sure that you're eating right. Next one, so that's the third, is don't act like you've never been there before. This was important for me. I remember before we came to America, my mama took me to a restaurant just by myself, and she ordered something with a fork, and it was kind of strange because you may think, wow, okay, with a fork, everybody eats with a fork. Well, in our traditional ways, we ate with a spoon and a fork, and most of the time we ate with a spoon because you get more in your spoon. Makes sense to me, still does. And yet she showed me how to eat. We ordered this Filipino noodle dish called pancit, and we ended up sitting there, and of course her always remind me how to sit and eat and so forth as well, but really showing me how to roll the pancit in my fork and eating it in that manner. And it was important for her. It was important for her because I was going to go to America and I needed to learn how to eat in a manner that she knew how they ate. She had been here in the 60s, and so she wanted to show me the right way of eating. And I am very grateful for that. In that when I got into restaurants, not every day. I didn't grow up in that lifestyle where I ate, with a full, serving of just the utensils and everything every day. That wasn't my lifestyle. But even though I could walk into a restaurant, and as I'm literally slowly walking from the entrance to where I'm seated, or even as we are waiting, I am watching just through my peripheral vision of how people carry themselves, how they eat, how they carry a conversation. And these were things that I really picked up from my mama and my papa, really carrying themselves and knowing, don't act like you've never been there. Even though it's your first time, don't act like all of a sudden you don't know how to carry yourself. Act like you carry yourself with respect the entire time. And so I would be watchful of what everyone was doing. And so this was important for me, where I would want to make sure that I gave my children, certain environments, my husband and I, and how to carry yourself so that you wouldn't act like you were a person who didn't know how to carry yourself, even if you've never been there. And it's the beauty, right, of your blessings of falling forward and getting to better places and being able to experience greater things in life, knowing that you've always been that masterpiece from the beginning. And then here you are, being able to surround yourself with such greatness that you're worthy of having, and yet don't act like you are perhaps the peasant that didn't know how to handle yourself once you got there. So handle yourself well. And I'm so grateful that I still remember that day where my mama taught me how to eat with a fork, because from there on I knew it was important how to eat, how to carry myself. When I got to America, even though I was only the age of 7, I was already mindful of that. It was important of how to be and how to become. So that one is the fourth one. Don't eat like you've never been there, or don't act like you've never been there, I guess, in every environment that you are in. And then the fifth one is women and men deserve to be equal. That does not mean, I am not sitting here saying that no man should ever hold a door. Till this day, I still wait upon my husband to open the door for me. Maybe not the car. Very first car he had, I thought he was being, it was so filled with so much gentility. We still talk about this to this day. Because he would open his CRX for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a gentleman. Only to find out that that handle was broken from, from the inside. Or that he couldn't open it from the outside, so he had to actually go in and open it for me. And yet here I was thinking, oh wow, here's the gentleman that my papa had always said you need to be. And yet it was more by reason and not by choice. And yet I started to really show him that those were my expectations. And as time evolved, and through our relationship, now mind you, we're going on 3 decades, he knows that that is priceless to me. And you can tell when we've had days where we're kind of irritated by each other, because there are days where I know it's that moment where I get to open my own door because my husband's not having it. But and that life happens, right? But I know that 99.9% of the time my husband knows how to treat me like a lady, out in the open, opening my doors, and that is so priceless, just stuff like that. And yet when it comes to that equality, what I mean is that balance, is that if my husband and I are putting a are having a project and we're making something happen, right? We're building something together. If for any reason that, like, let's say we're painting a room or putting molding in, he knows I'm better at doing the molding than he is while he's painting. I mean, these are just things that we do together. And, I remember one time I was washing my car outside, and a neighbor who unfortunately is no longer with her partner had said, "Why are you washing the car? That's a man's job." And I think to myself, but I do my car so much better. And the reason, because I'm nitpicky like that, yes, my husband washes my car. Yes, he cleans it. And then I also have to wait for when he's in the mood to do it. Why in the world do I want to aggravate myself? So there are times where I'm just like driven to do manly things, whatever you want to call it. I'm out there and I'm, washing my own car and vacuuming my own car. It's because I know how to do that. And at the same time as now in our, 3 decades of marriage, my husband, I have discovered, makes better dishes than I do. So, and then he's so much more peaceful at cooking than I am because he enjoys it. For us women, it becomes a chore when you're doing it day in and day out. So really what I mean by women and men deserve equal respect is let me do me, let you do you. And it's not about it's a guy thing, it's a girl thing, and it's a male should do this and female should do this. It's really about getting to know your own strength and your own self and knowing what is comfortable for you and respecting that. Because I remember my papa making dishes and I go, "Papa, who taught you how to make this?" And he had that smile on his face that says, "Your mama," and they had been married for almost 40 years. So think about that in that situation where you really understand, that mutual respect. It does not mean that every man should lose their gentility and every woman should lose their lady mannerisms. It means that you give each other the respect they need to be who they want to become. Last one, and not of any least at all whatsoever, what I am so grateful for that they have instilled in me is to love God. And they may have not had it right. No one has it right. This is why you can read the Bible over and over and over. I've, also read the Quran. I have also tried my best to read just the Hebrew, perspective of it, and yet it can be very difficult because it's hard to translate all of that. And yet, the one thing that we all have in common is to love God. And for me, that is the beautiful part because it teaches you goodness. It teaches you to have, the subconscious mind to go do the right thing, do what is expected of you because, you have to be morally right. And I am so grateful for that from day one. Another story before I end this. When I came to the U.S., one of the big talks, I shouldn't say big, just really short, very succinct though, talk that my papa had with me was don't do drugs. And he instilled that, probably took like maybe 2-minute discussion, 3 minutes, because it did seem very short to me. And he put so much strength in his words about don't do drugs. And my obedience for that was so strong that it came from my papa, and I knew how serious he was about it, that when my cousin, not kidding you, told me to go into Bartell drugs, I stood outside, said I'm not going in. And in my own Filipino accent, still at that time, very young, about the age of 7, she was just going off about, "What are you talking about? Why aren't you going in? We're gonna get candy." And I was like, "No drugs." I could give you my Filipino accent, but I'm sure you could just clarify that in your own mind of what I sounded like as a little kid with a Filipino accent, and really just focusing in on the message that my papa had told me is to stay away from drugs. Didn't go into Bartell drugs because they had the word drugs in it. And that's how strong I was in my belief of how much my papa really wanted me to stay away from it. And so I am grateful. I know that I am not the best daughter in this world, never will be. And I strive to be the best I can be no matter what. I know that my parents would probably also be able to admit before my papa passed away. He said, you know, one of the things that he admitted to is that he did yell out perhaps where I got it from, right? Not to blame him, because he was a spectacular, phenomenal father that I needed to have in my life to become who I am. There are no mistakes in life, I truly believe. And so for me, I'm grateful for the things that did not just go from one ear to another. And these 6 again today are, the first one is act like a lady, be quiet, close your book, as my mom would say, close your legs. Okay, roll your shoulders back so you have good posture. That's number 1. Don't shave your legs. Some of you are like, beg to differ. I get you on that. Okay, third one is eat right. Have your mouth closed. Don't be gluttonous. What is that? Fourth one, don't act like you've never been there, right? I mean, still know how to carry yourself like that princess, that queen, so that you know in your mind and your spirit and your body that you are royalty, that you are a masterpiece, and that you, even though you are still trying to figure it out, you're smart enough to figure it out. And then next one, the 5th one is women and men deserve equal respect. That doesn't mean that men, you forget to be a gentleman, that women, you forget to be a lady, but that there's that mutual respect for each other as we are trying to find who we are in this world, to make that connection and to make that impact in this world, to be strong together as one. Doesn't mean to become the other. It means that we complement each other, and so therefore we give each other our respect for our strengths. And then last but never, ever, ever the least is to love God. Whether you believe in Jesus Christ, to really love God the Father and know that He exists, that He loves us all, and that you are working to the best of you, because when you are a masterpiece, as Voka, my favorite artist out there, could watch you all day. I watch you and you sit back and you watch your masterpiece. I'm like, what's wrong with the Marilyn Monroe painting? It's beautiful. And you're sitting there thinking you could add more to it. I get it. I know that God is watching each and every one of us and going, let me fix you a little bit more. Let me fix you a little bit more. But you've got to desire that, right? You've got to be that painting is saying, okay, what more of me should be added, right? Because I'm still a work in progress. That is a masterpiece, is never being satisfied with the best of you, even if you know that you are perfect today or that you have reached excellence. You know there's something more of you tomorrow to be even more excellent, to be even more masterful, one day at a time. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Keep loving you, keeping the best of you. Give yourself permission to say, maybe I didn't get it right today, but that is what the masterpiece is all about, that you are, is doing you the best you can, and then eventually getting it right every day. That is our goal. And until we close our eyes and move on from this world, this short time that we have here, we can work towards that masterpiece, and we will become legendary people we have inspired and that we have helped to guide them into their direction of working towards their masterpiece of themselves as well. Have a great day, everyone. We will see you when we see you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.